Another chapter of talking about myself. What a scary ass thought that is. Well, this time around I'm going to talk to you about my brushes with death. This one's going to get a little personal, a little emotional, and some of you may not like hearing it, but hey, here it is, because it is part of who I am. My first experience, I actually do remember barely. I remember it more as kind of short videos and still images that pop in here and there when I try to think about it. I don't know where we were going, but my mother was driving across Death Valley, of all places. That's out in California. And it was summertime. Now we left early in the morning. It was still dark and I was asleep in the back seat. I was about 4 years old, maybe 5. We were off to visit somebody, I don't really remember who. And I don't remember anybody that lived that direction going out of LA, but you know. And according to my mother, about halfway through Death Valley, car broke down. Blew a radiator hose or something. And it was about 8, 9 in the morning, starting to get warm. She lifted the hood, figured out what was wrong. Nobody would stop. All day long, she said, she tried to flag people down, and even California Highway Patrol just drove on by, kept on going. Nobody would stop and help. This went on all day. Anybody who knows anything about Death Valley knows it gets pretty damn hot there. So she gets me out of the car, tries to keep me in the shade, keep me cool. Luckily, she was smart enough to pack an ice chest full of liquids. And she kept feeding me liquids as time went on. Wasn't enough. Eventually I started passing out from heat stroke, and she said she thought she lost me there for a while, but then some off-roaders popped up on the road. And they helped, and they realized how bad I was, apparently, and there were 3 vehicles. One of the vehicles took me and my mom and rushed us to the hospital, which was about 40 miles away. And then the other group apparently worked on the car and got it running, got it into the hospital. And they were members of the Good Sam Club. Now, Good Sam Club was a travel group, RV group. I don't know if they're still around. I don't hear of them anymore. Used to hear of them all the time. But they stood for, what Good Sam stood for was Good Samaritan. And really all it was people that just traveled and went from RV parks to state parks, and they camped, they hung out, they had fun. You know, good family, wholesome, harmless fun. And they did off-roading out in the desert and in the mountains. It was a club that was nationwide. That was my really first brush with death, because they got me to the hospital. Apparently I was there for 3 days on fluids and being treated for severe dehydration and shock, and yeah, It wasn't pretty. Of course, doctors told my mother I was going to have brain problems because, well, my brain had gotten overheated. But, of course, that might explain quite a bit. But, yeah, you know, it is what it is. After that, I was pretty much a typical kid, you know. My next close call wasn't quite so close. I actually died. For about 2 years, I kept having this pain in my abdomen that just, it hurt. It was severe. I couldn't eat. I'd throw up. And then it would go away. And for 2 years, my mother would take me to doctors and the hospital and different things trying to get me checked out when it got really bad. And they couldn't find anything. They said there was nothing wrong with me. They finally told her it was all in my head. Well, summer of 76? No, summer of 77. I spent it up at some property south of Yosemite, or north of Yosemite, kind of between Mariposa, California and Yosemite, on California Highway 140, I believe. A friend of my mother's had bought some property up there when she retired from Stanford. And I was supposed to spend 2 weeks up there for the summer. I get up there and I'm fine. Then I get sick. I'm burning up. A few days later, I can't get in water above my waist. That water touched my waist, I'm done. I'm screaming. But I stayed like that for 2 weeks. And then I got put back on a bus. Rode 6 hours back to Modesto, where I lived. My mother picked me up at the bus station. I still wasn't right. Sat in the chair in the living room, watched TV. A friend of my mother's from Chicago was out staying with her for a while, with us. And she looked at my mother and said, "He doesn't look right." And then they both noticed that I was the same color as the white sheet that was covering me. So they rushed me to the hospital. I don't even know what time it was. It was late at night. I was kind of out of it. What I do remember about that night is it took 4 nurses, my mother, and 3 orderlies to draw blood and stick me with IVs. I was fighting that hard. I did not want to be stuck. And I just fought and fought and fought and fought. Well, long story short, my mother said the operation took almost 14 hours and was the first time in her career as an RN that she had ever seen a surgeon come out of the OR in tears. First thing I remember from waking up was I had a tube out of each nostril, tubes coming out of my belly, tubes down my throat. I mean, I had an IV in both arms. I just, I was wired. Then I found out from the doctor that they had trouble with me because I had coded 3 times during the surgery. Now, coding means my heart stopped. The last time, they worked on me for 45 minutes to no luck. They gave up. After 45 minutes of working on me, they gave up and started writing out the death certificate. And then I came back, just like that. Now here's the funny thing, I don't remember anything of that. I don't remember floating over my body. I don't remember talking to God or Jesus or anyone else. I don't remember seeing anyone. I just don't remember. But I'm still here. I survived it. Then there's 1980, 81, I was 15. Living with my brother, David, outside of Reno, Nevada. And his wife had just left him. He was going off the deep end because she left him for another woman. And somehow at 15, it became 14, 15, it became my responsibility to take care of his kids. I had to get them up in the morning, I had to feed them, I had to dress them, I had to clean them. And I had to do all this before he got home. Well, this one particular day, JR had filled his diaper with the remnants of his food from the day before. And his sister thought she was going to be helpful and change him. Yeah, that didn't work. They were both covered in the contents. The wall was covered. The bed was covered. So I had to clean it all up before David got home from work. Well, in getting all that done, I missed the school bus. So I walked back to the house, went inside. Kids were back in bed, laying down. I figured I'd lay down for a little bit. I got woken up by my brother being grabbed out of the bed by the top of my hair and thrown across the room. Now, when he threw me, I could feel my scalp separate from the skull. And there was a loud pop. It hurt. Well, that was for missing the bus. He beat my butt. Hell with it. He beat my ass like that because I missed the bus, but didn't want to hear why. Didn't care. So I did what I was told to do. And when he left that afternoon, I reached into the linen closet where he kept the .357. It was loaded as always. And I went into my room and sat in the corner on my bed, because my bed was shoved into the corner of the room. Back against the wall, shoulder against the other wall. Thought about the day's events and how miserable my life was and how much it sucked. Put the gun next to my right ear, just in front of it, and pulled the trigger. The gun went off. I had the powder burn on the side of my head and on my hand to prove it. The bullet lodged directly in the wall across from the gun next to my head. It was perfectly flush with the outside wall. Don't know how. Don't know why. The only way it could have happened that way is divine intervention. That probably should have been my first huge wake-up call. But instead, it didn't change much. The only thing it did was make my mother finally move up there and get me out of the house from David. After that, life went on. I did a lot of stupid shit growing up after we moved into Reno. I got involved doing Old West stunt shows for a couple years. Got kicked, stomped, bit, hit in the head so many times I lost count. Screwed up my back, screwed up my head, screwed up my legs, my arms. But I had fun. Got into riding motorcycles, mountain raced up and down Mount Rose Highway in Virginia City. Then I went in the military, and that was a whole another batch of fun times. But I think the only time, there were a couple other times. Once, it was like 83. No, it was 85. I was home for a while and I decided I wanted to go back to high school, or no. My brother was living in Seattle and needed help with the kids, so he convinced me to come up there. And I went up to help him. And I was nothing more than a housemaid for him. Had to have his dinner ready when he got home from work. Had to take care of his kids all day. Etc., etc., etc. Same shit, different day. Well, we were coming down to Reno because he had something to do, and he decided since he worked all night, he was tired, so it was my turn to drive. Now, mind you, I hadn't slept in 2 days packing for his trip, taking care of him and his kids. But I had to drive. Didn't have a driver's license either. I fell asleep. Coming down I-5 out of Redding, California. Windy mountain roads, and I drove off the cliff. I was the worst injured. I damn near ripped this ear off. I've got a big scar behind it where they put it back together. And I have scars all over my head. I think it was a total of 73 stitches in all to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. My head went through the driver's window and got crushed between the roof and the door, and yeah, kind of screwed me up. But he was pissed off at me for driving off the road. Never mind the fact that I hadn't slept. So, we ended up back in Reno. Life sucked again, still. And I got married to my first wife. My first wife was interesting. Tall, blonde hair, blue eyes, good looking. Got married in August, and she left me December 22nd. Same year. I come home and I find her in bed with some other guy. Turns out he was a friend of mine's brother. She decided she wanted to go to work at Mustang Ranch because she wanted to buy a new Trans Am. Yeah, that was her driving force in life. Needless to say, we were divorced shortly after. But that didn't stop me from spending pretty much January and February inside a bottle. Mostly January. And I got told after I sobered up by some friends of mine on the police department that they saw me racing down Interstate 80 on my motorcycle. Mind you, it's January. It's bloody cold. It's snowing. And I'm racing down I-80 and 395 in excess of 100 miles an hour in a snowstorm on a motorcycle. They had no idea how I made it home. Hell, I don't know how I made it home. You know, when I've talked to people about some of these things, they've all told me that I've survived it because there's something I'm supposed to do. I don't know what it is. I wish I knew. I wish God would tell me. You know, I got really tired of getting slapped upside the head and kicked in the teeth. God's kind of getting on my nerves. So, yeah, that's about it for now. Hope that gives you a little more clarity onto me and the kind of person I am and how I am and what I am. But if it doesn't, tough shit, you ain't gonna figure it out because I'm still trying. God bless. Have a great day. Love y'all. Peace.